And welcome back to Nerdium, a show where two totally mature and not at all childish men sit down and discuss all things nerd. Comics, TV, video games, and even movies, whatever our youthful hearts desire. Today, fellow nerds, we're joined in the basement by none other than Zack Ward, or as some of you may know him, the yellow-eyed bully Skut Farkus of A Christmas Story. Why don't you sit back, relax, and enjoy our discussion with Zack about working in the industry with one of its most infamous directors, why it's important that Ralphie actually puts a beating on Scott, and how do you buy stock in your favorite sports teams? Matt, when you're ready, make sure our wood-paneled walls are nice and waxed, the futon's cushions are fluffed, and hit the music.
All right, so today we're joined with Zack Ward, actor, writer, producer. He's known for some of his roles on TV, such as Titus, Always Sunny in Philadelphia, American Horror Story. He's also been in movies like Transformers, Freddy vs. Jason, Resident Evil Apocalypse, and most famously, A Christmas Story.
And he also has a jawline that could cut diamonds.
You flirtatious bastard, you.
So, well, first off, thank you for joining us today. We greatly appreciate it.
My pleasure. Where are you guys located?
We are just just outside of Ottawa.
I was going to say, I heard a lot of Canadian in there.
Nice. We were just talking about our unique accents there a couple minutes ago, as a matter of fact.
I'm from Toronto, right?
Yep. So am I.
Nice. Yeah, it's always good to hear. It's always nice to hear a good about every once in a while.
It's a good about, or the good pronunciation of an O and a sorry. It's always comfortable to hear that.
Yeah, punctuating every sentence with A.
Absolutely. So,
and my favorite is when you tell an American that you're from Canada, and they go, "Oh, good, nice to meet you." A, you're like, "Yeah." That's how everybody talks. Good job, dummy. That was awesome.
Way to hit with those original zingers. I did not see that one coming.
Yeah.
So, as Matt just mentioned there, you were, we'll start from the early beginnings when we first bumped India, and that was in 1983's A Christmas Story. We were kind of talking about it earlier about being a child star, being a child actor. How did that go for you? Because nowadays, with things like Twitter and social media, I think the child star experience is a little bit different. Yeah,
that's a good point. When my mom's an actress. My mom's name is Pam Hyatt, Hyatt. She's 82 years old now, but she's been an actress since she was 24. And she was from Long Island, New York. She moved to Canada and became pretty successful and kind of a big deal for a minute. And so I grew up surrounded by people in the industry at the Shakespeare's Festival in Stratford, Ontario. Backstage playing with swords and dressing up like a knight and wearing the armor, and learning Shakespearean theater since I was a kid and watching other people do it. It's something I wanted to try, and my mom let me get involved in it eventually. When I was about 10 years old, I had begged, and she finally relented, and so she took me to a bunch of auditions for commercials, and then I got the audition for A Christmas Story. And when I got the audition for Christmas Story, it's what we call a cattle call. There's like 300 kids, and you just get repeated callbacks. So it went from 300 all the way down to 10, and then I got the job. I show up on set. Bob Clark sees I'm a foot taller. He says, he looks at Yano Anaya, who I'm a foot taller than. He says, he gets your lines, you get his. And that was how I became Skut Farkus. I mean, that's kind of amazing, right?
Yeah.
But like to comment on what you guys brought up, nobody cared. The movie came out, nobody cared. Not for 20 years did anybody really care. And when I was in high school, I literally took a girl on a date. This is a true story. I took this girl I had a mad crush on, took her on a date to a movie that I was in. She's a French girl. So hot. And I mean, I was 13, 14 years old. It was a big deal. I was 14. I was in a movie, and I took a girl to the movie. You're thinking, that's going to go pretty well. We walk out of the movie. I'm like, so what did you like the movie? Did you think? Because I'm a complete nerd. And she looks at me and goes, no, I don't like this so much. And she leaves.
No.
That's it. Oh yeah, no, I don't like this one so much. It gets on the subway and just goes away. I'm not standing there like an idiot. And I was telling you before, like in school, it's not like people were nicer to me. They would turtle me. It's a term you guys know from when they
Yeah.
pull the jersey over your head and punch you in the face. So it's a hockey move. That was my celebrity as a teenager, which I think in the long run helped me not be a psychopath because I didn't have the LA Hollywood experience of being, quote, famous. So I was just a working actor, and I started that when I was 10 years of age, and I'm turning 50 this August, so that'll be 4 decades of doing this stuff. And that's how it all started.
You kind of showed them, though. You have a Skut Farkus action figure now, so.
Hell yeah.
Not too many people get to stake the claim that there's a 12-inch miniature of them running around people's toy boxes.
That's pretty cool, right? Yeah. It's and I own all the remaining toy action figures in the world. I actually sued the company that made them because they did it illegally, which they're known for doing that a lot.
Oh, yeah?
This company's called NECA does this thing all the time to people, and they just expect them to roll over and take it. And I was like, nah, I'm going to sue you. So that took like, no, I'm not going to let you get away with taking my face. Screw you. That's my face. You can't have it for free. Yeah. So if you see me at a convention, I sell them to raise money for different charities to support bully prevention programs. And they've been really, really successful, and they're pretty cool. I saw one on eBay going for $1,500. I don't think that's a thing. I think that guy is just smoking crack. But, it was a compliment. I'll take it.
Christmas Story's kind of stood up through the test of time. And why do you think it's been such a classic Christmas movie to watch?
I think it's because it was so well made. The film feels so genuine and honest, and it translates to every single demographic, every generation. I've met men in their 70s who walked up when I was doing a signing, and they're, where are the kids from A Christmas Story? And I raised my hand. He goes, no, you'd be my age. I'm like, no, sir. The movie wasn't shot in 1942. It took place in 1942. But the thing that guy relates to the process of it and the experience, and then watching little kids watch it, who, there's no phones in it, there's no iPads, there's no expensive, silly toys. I mean, it's about a Depression era family struggling to get through and having dreams, but it's about being a kid, and it's from the perspective of a child. So it's not looking down on a kid, and I don't mean that metaphorically, I mean that physically. If the camera is at an adult's head height, it tilts down to look at a child, so the child inside the frame looks small. But if you notice in the movie, everything's shot from a kid's perspective. The whole movie is like 3.5, 4 feet off the ground.
That's a good point.
Well, I can definitely tell you, it spoke to my family. I remember watching it with my granddad, and he definitely beat me over the head that the whole entire movie was basically his childhood growing up in that era, in that time. So, I mean, you see, the movie definitely spoke to him. It spoke to me as a kid. And even now, I definitely force my son to sit down beside me and watch it every Christmas, just because it is a staple in our house, to be sure.
How old is your son?
He's 2.5 years old.
So forcing him is not that difficult. Like, let's be honest.
No, a bowl of chips and his favorite blanket is pretty much all it takes to get him to sit still for about 5 minutes. So I'm good.
Yeah, I think you should be able to take him at 2.5. Like, you should be able to take him on a wrestling mat. If not, you need to hire someone.
You would think so, but he is a vicious little monster sometimes.
Yeah, they have no respect for the genitals.
No, the genitals or the bloody nose that he has caused on a number of occasions. Because, he's a fighter. Unbeknownst to myself, who found out after he turned 2 that he was a fighter.
Wow. So how do you feel like with A Christmas Story, because this is something that's come up because of the new age of everybody's apologizing for everything. You've got the bully situation. You got Skut Farkus getting the snot beat out of him by Ralphie, and then you've got the Chinese. This stuff. I mean, as a father, you got your kid there, and you're saying, okay, here's a movie. It's Christmas, and now we're going to beat up this kid.
Well,
What's your thoughts on it?
I'm kind of torn on the bully issue because as I was talking to Matt before we sat down today, your depiction of a bully is pretty much every bully I ever had growing up as a kid.
Yeah.
And I was born in the 80s, so we were still of the generation where I remember my dad specifically sending me back outside to finish a fight because I came home beaten up, and he's like, "No, you're going right back out to finish it." So,
yeah,
from my own youth, it doesn't bother me so much, but for my son in the day and age that we are, it's he's not quite old enough to understand bullying yet.
Mm-hmm.
He's every now and then he kind of starts to show signs where because he's a big boy for his age.
Okay.
He wants to kind of force his opinion on the smaller kids every once in a while. So my partner and I, we kind of bring him back in and just be like, listen, you can't, you're not to be doing that. I definitely was never a bully, but it's definitely not something that worries me too much. I think we understand bullying a little bit better nowadays. You know.
Well, the thing, I was doing a charity fundraiser for Kidney Foundation in Ohio, no, Omaha, Nebraska, and they gotten a version of the movie from Warner Brothers, and Warner Brothers took out the scene where Skut Farkus got beat up. They didn't ask anybody's permission. They didn't ask if they were offended. They just took it out, as if they were safeguarding the audience from two kids getting into fisticuffs, where you really see nothing.
No.
The other thing is the message that it kind of turns is, I mean, you can look at it from Ralphie's perspective, where he gets bullied all the time, and that's always unfortunate. And kids are going to bully because that's just what kids do.
Yep.
But on the other hand, at the end of the movie, where Ralphie decides to just lose it and lay the beating on Skut Farkus, it's kind of one of those things like, this is why you don't bully. Because it's at a certain point in time, somebody that you bully is going to turn it around on you. And
it's also, and the reality is, look, I don't solve my problems with my hands on a regular basis, but I also know that is a reality. That would be like saying, okay, there's a military, but they're going to have a real conversation with you. In a normal life, you have to be prepared to solve your problems, and you have to be able to solve them with your mind and being intelligent. And if you have to solve them with your hands. At a certain point, push comes to shove, and that's why there is that saying. And I find it shocking that people want to just whitewash everything, revisionist history, to the point where, the cavemen back then used to play Monopoly in order to solve their problems. It's just ridiculous. Like, I don't think children should walk around punching each other in the face. That's literally the point. Is the bully when gets stood up to, but you can't live in fear. You have to solve your problems. You have to address them. And it's interesting to see. We're living in a time where everything is shifting to a sense of political correctness, regardless of the truth or the facts. Truth is variable. Facts are facts. Okay. So, and I think it's sad.
Yeah, and I think that by removing in this situation where they remove that scene, you're removing the bully has no consequences to his actions.
Right.
If you remove that scene, the context of what Skut Farkus does is, look at how he picks on these kids, look at how he torments them, look at how he scares them to death, and look at how nothing bad ever happens to him.
Exactly. And also our hero of our story never stands up for himself. He just walks away. Which actually, he doesn't even choose to walk away. If he had gotten hit in the face with a snowball, brushed the snowball off, looked at Skut, and was like, go away, and turned around and walked away, and Skut was staying there feeling like a jackass, and all the other kids like, ha ha, laughing at him, you could have almost the same resolution. Mm-hmm. But at least he would have made a decision, as opposed to in the version where it's cut out completely. Yeah, there's no repercussions in life.
Like, we're kind of in an age right now where we almost go too far on the PC side, where it's almost like a detriment to what the message was trying to be. So
yeah, it's frustrating. It's just going to be interesting to see how this lands, how people choose to share this information with their kids. Hopefully it's swung so far it can calm down and come to a center point where it's like, look, you should solve your problems by being smart. If someone is seriously being a bully and there's a physical danger there, that knives, guns, gangs, this type of thing, use your brain. Don't use your fists. If you're jumped by some kid in an alleyway and he starts hitting you, hit him back. Protect yourself. If someone attacks your mom, protect your mom. You know what I mean? Like this, hopefully everyone stops being a little bit crazy.
Yeah, like it's a fine scene. Just like if you need to have a follow-up discussion with your kid about it, then have the follow-up discussion so that they understand the point of it. And it's not just a violent act, but trying to cut it out, it's just being a little lazy about it.
Yeah,
so.
it's almost like we're afraid of the discussion as opposed to having it.
Right.
You know, and
yeah, and then it leaves your kid unprepared for that eventuality.
Oh, for sure. Plus, I mean, if you're afraid to talk to your kid about bullying, what else are you afraid to talk to your kid about?
Right.
You know, there's a lot worse things out there than a kid picking on them. That's going to come up in their lifetime. And if you're afraid to have a simple conversation of why bullying is wrong, what to do when a bully talks to you, what are you going to do when the really important stuff starts to come up?
Yeah, that's a very good point. All right, I think we solved the Will's issues on that one.
On to the next one. So, changing gears though, you played a lot of roles in kind of like video game movies and voice acting. Are you kind of a big gamer yourself?
On occasion, yeah. My wife and I have a tradition around Christmas, is after all the Christmas stuff is done, play the new Tomb Raider game together for like 3 days, and see how far we can go. Yeah, we enjoy it.
So with a lot of the movies that you've worked on, like we touch on the video game movies, you've definitely done some work with Yul Bol, who love him or hate him, the man is definitely charismatic and is either famous or infamous depending on how you look at the guy. What was your experience working with him?
Sweet man, very driven, pretty sloppy when it comes to directing. But a great guy, great guy. And I think he now owns a restaurant in Vancouver.
That's what I read. And I talked to Matt and I guess Matt hadn't really quite heard about him. But I saw, he said, he's a unique individual.
Yes, he is.
Excellent.
Yeah. Like I knew about his work, but not so much about his life outside of that.
Yeah. I was doing Postal with him, in Vancouver. And then I did Blood Rain Deliverance with him after that. But during Postal, he actually had a boxing match against a whole bunch of critics from different horror magazines and so forth. And it was pretty funny because Uwe, and by the way, that's how you pronounce his name. It's apparently, who would know?
Yeah, I knew I was pronouncing it wrong and I couldn't remember for the life of me how to say it properly.
Yeah, it's UWE, but apparently that's a V sound, so Uwe. And he was a boxer when he was in high school and college. So these poor guys, these critics, thought it was a joke, and they showed up being silly and got the crap knocked out of them. And one of them was sitting on the curb throwing up afterwards, and it was pretty funny. It was pretty funny.
So of your roles, I mean, spanning from like 1983 all the way up to today, so decades worth of work, is there a particular favorite role that you have or one that stands out that really just kind of sits on your top shelf?
Definitely Christmas Story is a major part of my life. Titus, the TV series Titus, was fantastic because that was 3 years of playing a character and really getting into the role and knowing how to work with the comedy and the writers and the crew. That was a fantastic experience. Doing Almost Famous, although not a large role, it was a lot of fun to do the accent. The character is Red Dog, dog like that, man. How's it going, brother? So that, and then the long red hair and the facial beard, lots of wigs and stuff like that. Resident Evil Apocalypse was a lot of fun. Lots of military training. That Transformers. I've had a lot of fun with almost all of them. They're usually a good time. There's a couple of them you do and you can't wait for it to be over.
Of course.
But those just, you got to pay your bills somehow, and that's what you do. But most of it's been really enjoyable.
Well, excellent. I think everybody can kind of get behind the idea that not every day is a banner day at work. You can't always love what you do, but as long as you're doing what you love, that's what's important.
Yeah, there you go.
So we just wrapped up probably one of the most intense Super Bowl games of the year. We know that you're associated with a particular organization that actually is right in the sports world. Do you want to give us a little telltale about that?
Yeah, I work with All Sports Market. If you go to allsportsmarket.com, you can see exactly what it is for free. It is the first and only stock market of sports teams. So instead of betting on your team, you buy shares in your team. And as the team does well and as the market responds, your shares go up and down in value. So say, for example, you had bought shares for the Rams, and the Rams are, 2 years old now? So they're not a highly prized team. Say you had bought shares at I'll use the Philadelphia Eagles because I know their stats better. So the Philly Eagles at the beginning of their season last year were roughly about $4 a share. At the end of the season, at the Super Bowl, they were $14 a share. Now, the great thing is, if you had done the exact same thing with the LA Rams, and say you bought them at $4 a share and they went up to $14 a share, when they lost the Super Bowl, you didn't lose your shares. So unlike a bet, if I bet you $100 that the Rams would win the Super Bowl and they lost, I'd lose $100. On the flip side, I bought $100 worth of shares of the Rams in the beginning of the season. The shares kept on climbing up in value. They hit $14. They lose the Super Bowl. Maybe the shares go down $1, $1.50. Maybe they don't go down at all, and I keep all my shares. So it's the difference between betting and investing. And it's an exciting option because it's never been around before in the history of mankind. It's always been one choice, which was betting, if you wanted to interact money and sports. So this is a brand new thing. It's really exciting. Like I said, if you go to allsportsmarket.com, there's a pilot market and there is a play market. The play market, you sign on, you get $2,500 of learning currency right away. So it's all play money. It's all fake for you to be able to experience it, see if you like it, and see how it works and understand how it works. And once you feel comfortable with that, you can then go on to the pilot market for real cash. And we have roughly 10,000 users in 94 countries around the world right now. So that's,
oh wow,
yeah, we're excited about it because it's really got a lot of traction. And we're going through the process of making it a fully regulated exchange in the eyes of the federal government. So our goal is to make this a legitimate alternative exchange.
Awesome. Well, I think the flavor out there is for something a little bit different than your typical, yes or no win bets.
Yeah.
Right.
It sounds like something that people can really kind of get behind and gives them something to watch is over time, as opposed to how am I going to do over this game. They actually have a good reason to follow that stock all throughout the season and even beyond the season.
Yeah, exactly. That's the thing too, is betting only works when the game is played. Investing works 365 days a year, because even when your favorite team is not actually playing, maybe they're in the off season, but one of the lead athletes is doing something interesting, has a music album come out, or does something on the social media outlets that garners a lot of attention, or say they get a new stadium, or they're doing their draft picks. All that is something that it affects the marketplace, affects the way that the people are interested in their team. So it changes out the buying and selling of the stocks. And you're a father, so there's going to be a point where your kid is going to be interested in sports, and the option is, hey, let's go gambling. Okay, that's an idea. Or, hey, here's how you do investments. And you literally can go on the play market, buy shares in you and your kid's favorite team, and track how it's doing over the season, and buy and sell the shares. Although they're the play market, you're still able to interact with it 100%. And at the end of a season, your son or daughter understands the concepts of investing. Now, that's huge, because typically if you talk to a kid a 10-year-old and you say, hey, by the way, let's talk about the stock market and Wall Street. And what do you think the dividend reserve is going to be on this fourth quarter? And they're going to fall asleep. It's exhaustingly boring. Plus, they don't feel connected to it. It doesn't relate to them. If you said, what do you think about the pork belly futures? No, they're not going to be excited about that. But if you talk to them about their favorite team, they already have a love for this. They already have statistics in their head and math. And that's something that's a huge part of life is math. And if you feel intimidated by math and isolated from it, you don't do well in school. You push away those topics that include math. And the reality is we're surrounded by math every single day. So you're shutting out part of the world. That's an incredible thing because you're scared of it. And that makes sense. If you use sports and the love of sports, and like there's 10-year-old kids that can tell you statistics on Pete Rose and what team won the 1976 World Cup or World Series. They know these things because they're talking with their dad and their grandpa and their mom, and they've got the jersey on the wall, so they feel included in it. Well, if you use that inclusion and you use that love of the game for them to feel like they're part of this process and they're not intimidated by it, well, then they understand math, then they understand investing, and then it doesn't become a magic trick. It becomes something that makes sense to them. You're a dad. You would rather have your kid get a $2 allowance and every weekend, and he saves 50 cents and puts it in a jar, and then that jar goes into the bank, and then he buys something in the stock market, and by the time he's 25 years old, there's $50,000. You'd rather have your kid thinking like that than the kid who goes, hey, I got $2. I blew it all on chocolate bars. Yeehaw. And that's really the comparison between betting and investing.
Well,
and
I think
you can use this to help create a whole different viewpoint towards long-term investing that's exciting and fun and inclusive. And maybe that changes perspective.
yeah, I think you nailed it on the head there with being able to sit down with your kids, because I know when I was a kid, no one was teaching me about the stocks or why it's important to invest, or why, saving money was just put money away in a piggy bank and then that was what you did. You didn't invest it. You didn't do something more with it. But I think, like you say, it was a great idea to get kids more involved in that kind of idea.
Yeah, it's great to get them kind of buying into their teams a little better, but also, you can kind of apply that to the outside from that application. You can kind of put it in towards actual investing and all that. So it's just a different kind of way to look at it.
Yeah. We're pretty excited about it. I think that not only that it becoming a legitimate exchange creates an economic resource for North America that has never existed before, but we've already had other countries hit us up asking for our technology on their exchange. Like, there's a stock exchange in New York City, but that's one of hundreds.
Mm-hmm.
And now it's one of the top, I think there's 6 of them that make over $1 trillion. But there's lots of smaller ones in other countries that make billions of dollars. And they've actually contacted us directly wanting to put our technology on their exchange because, there's other sports in the rest of the world. There's the soccer. There's the Australian rules football. There's cricket. These sports are adored by people all over the world, and they want to use that opportunity to put it on their exchange. And at the same time, they still want to have other people in other countries who want to partake in the NFL, the Super Bowl, the World Series, the American sports. So my fingers are crossed. This is basically where your company goes from being that little engine that could, and with the proper regulation, it could become that giant juggernaut that is the opportunity to bring more money into the country, into the different states and provinces, pays taxes, and generates a lot of opportunity. I mean, you also think about this with gambling. People don't pay taxes on gambling. And the money typically goes out of country. So if you lose that $100 bet on the LA Rams, that money doesn't typically stay in the United States or Canada. It goes offshore. And if you're gambling online with poker or whatever it is, that money doesn't stay here in the United States or Canada. It leaves, and those people don't pay taxes on it. So it's not contributing to your welfare. That kind of sucks because that's billions of dollars. It's a lot of money every year. Hundreds of billions of dollars go out of North America on online gambling and sports bets that are paid on foreign soil. So that money just leaves, and it doesn't benefit society in any way, shape, or form.
I think you guys got something on your hands right now with that could lead to definitely great things.
Thank you very much. My fingers are crossed.
Yeah. So I take it you watched the Super Bowl last night?
Yeah. Yeah. I was so hoping, when the LA Rams were making that comeback and he's right down in the end zone, he jumps up and he gets that interception. I was like, no, this could be awesome. It would have been. I mean, imagine if he had caught that, landed a touchdown. It was 10-10, and now you got a freaking game, man. Like now you've got this game. You're like, oh, this has been one of the boringest Super Bowls in history. But now it's anybody's game, and they just got to push. It would have been amazing. Instead, it was just a rout. And I mean, I understand why they played the defense the way they did because New England is just always freaking winning the Super Bowls. But it was frustrating. I mean, I'm happy for the LA Rams. They've been around for 2 years, and in 2 years they got to the Super Bowl. Good for them. But dag nabbit, it would have been so much better if that interception had not occurred. It would have been great.
That was the general consensus around the table last night as we watched.
The whole.
I think if you stuck your head out the door of your house, you would have heard the whole country go, "Aw!"
The defensive game was fun to watch for maybe the first quarter, but it got pretty quick.
Yeah, super. When the offense was doing nothing, it's just like, okay, well, you got to be able to push forward before you can do anything in the back game.
Yeah, first and 10, you got to get that 10, buddy. Keep on moving forward, not backwards.
Yeah.
All right, so we don't want to keep it for too much longer, but what else do you have going on right now?
I'm directing a movie at the moment with James Hong from Big Trouble in Little China. He played Lo Pan, the evil wizard with Kurt.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm doing that. It's a family adventure, magic adventure film, kind of like The Goonies meets Harry Potter. So that's fun. I'm doing that, and I am working on building a guest house. So that's fun as well.
Oh, jeez.
Two very different projects.
Yeah.
Two very different projects. Yeah, very different projects.
Awesome. Well, hopefully you don't hit the thumb too many times building those walls.
Yeah, we're just at the design and the permit stage, and that's exhausting enough as it is. But I can't wait to start building. That's going to be fun. My dad's a general contractor, so I grew up swinging a hammer and building houses, and that stuff I like. The figuring out exactly what the local offices allow permit-wise. Oh my God, that is just the left hand does not know what the right hand is talking about, and they both argue about it. And then you have to have approval from everyone, and unless they rubber stamp it, you can't make this. Blah 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 blah. Boring. Blah blah.
Bureaucracy can be a brutal mistress every once in a while.
Yes, it can. But so that's what I'm up to now, and basically that's about it. I wish I had something more exciting to tell you, but no, just living away.
When's that movie coming out?
No idea. This is a spec film, so unlike if you're doing a studio movie will literally have a release date before you start shooting, because they have all the money in the world to get it done. When you're doing an independent feature film, you are working under different pressures. So the release date is not something you're aware of until you finish the movie and you get it sold to different distributors or sales agents. So I'm hoping later this year, beginning of next one.
Oh, cool.
Awesome.
All right. Well, thanks for taking the time to talk to us today.
Yeah, man, we greatly appreciate you stepping in.
Oh, my pleasure. And if anybody wants to reach out and say howdy on Twitter, it's Total, Total, Zack Ward, ZACK WARD. That's the same thing for Instagram. And my Facebook is the one of, what is it? I think it's me. And it's got on the banner on top, this is kind of a big deal. It's got my face as a cartoon character from Mad Magazine. They just did a satire of A Christmas Story. 35 years later, they did that, and they called my character Skut Farkus, which is awesome. And I'm actually going over to the Mad Magazine offices tomorrow to meet up with everybody, and I can't tell you how excited I am. It's like the high point of my life.
That's amazing, man.
Very cool.
Well, thanks again for stopping by, Zach. We greatly appreciate it.
My pleasure, guys.
That'll do it for today's episode. As always, we want to thank you guys for spending just a little bit of your day with us. Matt and I always appreciate it. If you'd like to support our show, you can at patreon.com/nerdium. If you can't but want to help, feel free to give us a 5-star review wherever you enjoy listening. It'll help promote the show and show us you enjoy what we're doing. If you have any show ideas, comments, suggestions, or just want to say hi, you can email us at nerdiumpodcast@gmail.com. And if you'd like to find us on all the other social medias, whether it's Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, just search Nerdium Podcast. On behalf of Matt and I, thanks again for listening, thanks for your support, and always, make sure you stay nerdy.